The morning sun beat down on the 29 Palms Marine Corps Base in California's Mojave Desert. Heat shimmered off the sand in waves that made the distant mountains look like they were melting. It was the kind of heat that made breathing feel like work. At the extreme long-range shooting facility, a group of 8 Navy SEAL snipers stood in various states of frustration. They'd been at this for 3 days now, and the results were humbling. The target was a steel silhouette, human-sized, positioned at 4,200 meters. That was 2.6 miles, a distance so extreme that it pushed the limits of both equipment and human capability. "Winds gusting again," muttered Senior Chief Petty Officer Derek Holland, stepping back from his Barrett M82A1. "I had the calculations perfect, but the wind shifted during flight time." "Story of the past 3 days," replied Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, checking data on his tablet. "We've got temperature differentials creating thermals, wind shifting every 20 seconds, and the bullets in flight for over 8 seconds. Too many variables changing too fast." Master Chief Roy Patterson, the senior instructor running the course, walked over to review the data. He was a weathered veteran with 26 years in the teams, and he'd seen just about everything. But this challenge had him stumped too. "Gentlemen, let's take a break," Patterson announced. "Hydrate, cool down, and we'll reconvene in 30. As the SEALs headed for the shade, Patterson noticed someone he hadn't seen before, a woman sitting alone under a canopy about 50 yards from the firing line. She'd been there all morning, so still and quiet that she'd almost disappeared into the background. She looked to be in her early 40s, with black hair streaked with gray pulled back in a braid. She wore simple civilian clothes, cargo pants, a light long-sleeve shirt, and a wide-brimmed hat. In front of her was a notebook, and she'd been writing in it periodically. Patterson approached. "Can I help you, ma'am? This is a restricted training area." The woman looked up with dark, calm eyes. "I have authorization from Colonel Martinez at the Warfighting Lab. My name is Sofia Navarro." She pulled out credentials showing she was a civilian contractor with the Marine Corps. Patterson checked his roster. Sure enough, there was a note about a civilian observer from the Precision Fire Systems Development Program. He'd been so focused on the training that he'd forgotten to look for her. "Ms. Navarro, my apologies. I should have introduced myself earlier. Master Chief Patterson." "No apology needed, Master Chief. You've been occupied." Sophia gestured toward the distant target. "Challenging problem you're working on." "That's an understatement. Best snipers in the Navy, and we can't consistently hit that target. I'm starting to wonder if it's even possible with current conditions." Sophia tilted her head slightly. "Everything is possible. Some things just require a different approach." Patterson noticed her notebook was filled with sketches, wind patterns, mathematical equations, even what looked like wave diagrams. "You a scientist?" "Among other things, I study ballistics, atmospheric dynamics, and long-range precision fire. I've been observing your team's technique." "And," Sophia chose her words carefully, "you have excellent fundamentals. Your calculations are mathematically sound, but you're trying to solve a dynamic problem with static solutions." Patterson frowned, meaning, "The atmosphere at extreme range isn't stable. It's constantly flowing, shifting, creating patterns. You're calculating based on current conditions, but by the time the bullet arrives, those conditions have changed multiple times." "So what's the solution?" Sophia stood up, her movements unhurried. "May I watch the next series of attempts more closely?" "Be my guest." When the SEALs returned from their break, they found Sophia standing near the firing line, observing. A few gave her curious looks, but most ignored her. They were used to having observers, civilian contractors, visiting brass, researchers. One more didn't matter. Lieutenant Junior Grade Ryan Carter settled behind his rifle. Carter was the youngest sniper in the group, but also one of the most naturally talented. He'd made shots at over a mile in combat that other snipers called impossible. "Wind reading 12 knots at position, variable between 10 and 15, the spotter called out. Carter made his adjustments, controlled his breathing, and squeezed the trigger. The big rifle boomed. Everyone watched through spotting scopes. "Miss low and left approximately 3 meters, the spotter reported. Carter swore quietly and stood up. "I don't understand. All my data was good." Sophia had been watching not the rifle, but the desert between the firing line and the target. Now she spoke quietly. May I ask what wind reading you used for your calculation? Carter turned, noticing her for the first time. Current wind at shooting position and estimated wind downrange based on observation. And during the bullet's flight time, how many times did the wind change? Carter blinked. I don't know. At least 4 times, Sophia said calmly. I watched the heat shimmer patterns. The wind builds in cycles, approximately 18-second periods. It peaks, drops, shifts direction slightly, then builds again. Your bullet was in flight during a peak wind period. Senior Chief Holland stepped forward. Who are you? Sophia Navarro. I'm consulting on the Precision Fire Development Program. You some kind of physicist? I have degrees in applied mathematics and atmospheric science, yes. But more relevantly, I've been shooting long-range rifles for 32 years. That got their attention. Master Chief Patterson stepped in. Ms. Navarro has authorization to observe. She's been watching our attempts all morning. And what's your assessment? Webb asked, his tone skeptical but curious. Sophia looked at the group of elite operators. You're trying to calculate your way through a problem that requires observation. The mathematics can tell you what should happen in stable conditions. But conditions aren't stable. You need to read what's actually happening and time your shot accordingly. We are reading conditions, Holland protested. Wind meters, atmospheric data, temperature sensors. Those tell you what happened a moment ago, Sophia interrupted gently. Not what's happening now, and certainly not what will happen during your bullet's flight. For that, you need to use your eyes. Carter crossed his arms. All respect, ma'am, but we're trained observers. We know how to read conditions. You know how to read conditions at normal engagement distances, Sophia corrected. At 4,200 meters, the scale is different. You're not just reading local conditions. You're reading an entire atmospheric corridor nearly 3 miles long. She pointed toward the target. Do you see the patterns in the heat shimmer, the way the air distorts and flows? They all looked. The heat rising from the desert created visible waves in the air, like looking through water. That shimmer shows you the air movement in real time. Not just wind speed, but direction, consistency, and rhythm. If you learn to read it properly, you can see what the wind is doing across the entire distance. That's a lot of information to process, Webb said. That's why it requires practice and a different kind of attention. Sophia paused. Master Chief, permission to demonstrate. Patterson raised his eyebrows. You want to take a shot? If you're willing to allow it. The SEALs exchanged glances. Several looked amused. A civilian contractor, regardless of credentials, attempting a shot that had stumped the best SEAL snipers in the Navy. Ma'am, no disrespect, Holland said, but this rifle has significant recoil. Have you fired a .50 caliber before? Yes, Sophia said simply, many times. Patterson made a decision. All right, Ms. Navarro, let's see what you've got. Everyone give her space. The SEALs stepped back, most of them expecting this to be a quick failure followed by a return to their own attempts. Sophia approached the rifle position with calm, measured steps. She examined the weapon carefully, a Barrett M82A1 fitted with specialized optics and mounted on a precision rest. Then she checked the ammunition, the scope settings, the stability of the position. She didn't consult any of the ballistics computers or data tablets. She simply looked downrange through the scope for a long moment, then sat up and continued watching with her naked eyes. What's she doing? Carter whispered to Webb. No idea. Sophia sat perfectly still, watching the desert. She was looking at the heat shimmer, the way it moved and flowed, the patterns it created. To the untrained eye, it looked random, but Sophia had spent 3 decades learning to see what others missed. She watched for over a minute, not moving, barely seeming to breathe. Then, without any warning or apparent signal, she settled smoothly behind the rifle, found her sight picture, and fired. The recoil was massive. The .50 caliber Barrett kicked hard, but Sophia absorbed it perfectly, her position and body mechanics flawless. Then everyone waited. At 4,200 meters, the bullet would take over 8 seconds to arrive. The SEALs watched through their spotting scopes, waiting for the inevitable miss. This was just a civilian trying to prove a point. It was impossible that she'd... Clang! The metallic sound of bullet striking steel echoed across the desert. Hit, the spotter called out, his voice shocked. Center mass. Complete silence. Every SEAL was staring at Sophia, who had calmly sat up from the rifle and was brushing dust off her pants. That was luck, Holland said flatly. Had to be. Sophia met his eyes calmly. Would you like me to do it again? Patterson stepped forward. Yes, ma'am, I would. Sophia returned to her position behind the rifle. Again, she didn't consult data or make calculations. She simply watched the desert, breathing slowly, waiting. The SEALs watched her more carefully this time, trying to see what she was seeing. The heat shimmer danced and flowed, but they couldn't discern any pattern in it. After about 90 seconds, Sophia settled behind the rifle again and fired. 8 seconds later, clang. Hit center mass again. Now the SEALs weren't skeptical, they were stunned. Carter stepped forward. How are you doing that? Sophia stood and faced the group. I'm reading the atmospheric patterns and timing my shots for moments of optimal stability. The wind doesn't blow randomly, it follows rhythms and cycles. If you can see those rhythms, you can predict the brief windows when conditions align favorably. Can you teach that? Patterson asked. I don't know, Sophia admitted. I've been studying atmospheric patterns since I was 10 years old. It's not just a technique, it's a way of seeing. But I'm willing to try if you're willing to learn. Webb spoke up. Ma'am, with all respect, why are you here? If you can make shots like that, why are you a contractor and not an instructor? Sophia's expression became distant. Because I've spent the last 15 years working in research, not in the field. I developed systems and techniques, but I haven't taught operational shooters since. She paused. Since my husband died, he was a Marine scout sniper. He used to say I was the better shot, but I was the teacher and he was the warrior. After he was killed in Afghanistan 12 years ago, I stepped away from operational training. I've stayed in research because it's safer. Less personal. The atmosphere shifted. These men understood loss. They'd all lost brothers. But watching you struggle with this problem for 3 days, Sophia continued, I realized that Mark would have wanted me to help. He always said that knowledge isn't worth anything unless you share it, so I'm here to share what I know if you'll accept it. Patterson extended his hand. We'd be honored to learn from you, Ms. Navarro. Sophia shook his hand firmly. Then let's begin. But I should warn you, this isn't going to be easy. What I'm asking you to do goes against a lot of your training. You're going to have to unlearn some things before you can learn new ones. We're SEALs, Holland said with a slight smile. We specialize in doing difficult things. Good, Sophia replied. Because what I'm about to teach you is one of the most difficult skills in precision shooting. But if you master it, you'll be able to make shots that currently seem impossible. She looked at each of them in turn. The question is, are you ready to trust your eyes more than your equations, to see patterns that exist but that your instruments can't measure, to accept that sometimes the ancient art of observation is more powerful than modern technology? Carter spoke for the group. Teach us. Sophia nodded. Then forget everything you know about wind reading. We're starting from the beginning. Over the next hour, Sophia taught them to simply observe, not to calculate or measure, but to watch. She had them spend 10 minutes at a time just looking at the heat shimmer, trying to see patterns in what appeared to be chaos. Most of them struggled. They were trained to rely on data, on measurements, on concrete information. This felt too subjective, too uncertain. But Carter started to see it. There, he said suddenly, the shimmer. It builds up peaks, then settles, then builds again. It's like waves. Exactly, Sophia encouraged. You're seeing the rhythm. That rhythm is created by thermal currents interacting with wind. When you can see the rhythm, you can predict the pauses. By the end of the day, 3 of the 8 SEALs were starting to perceive the patterns. The others were frustrated but intrigued. This is going to take time, Sophia told Patterson. I can't teach in 3 days what took me years to learn, but if you give me 3 weeks, I can give your snipers a foundation they can build on. Patterson didn't hesitate. You've got your 3 weeks, Ms. Navarro, and whatever resources you need. As the SEALs packed up for the day, Sophia stood alone at the firing line, looking out at the target 4,200 meters away. She thought about Mark, her late husband, who'd been so proud of her shooting but had never lived to see her make a shot this extreme. I'm back, me Ammer, she whispered to the desert wind. I'm teaching again, just like you wanted. The wind blew steady and warm, and for just a moment, Sophia could almost feel him there beside her. The U.S. SEAL snipers couldn't hit the target until she hit 4,200 meters like it was easy. But the real work was just beginning. 3 weeks later, the transformation was remarkable. The same 8 SEAL snipers who'd struggled to hit 4,200 meters were now making the shot with 70% consistency. Sophia stood behind Lieutenant Carter as he settled into position. She didn't speak. He knew what to do now. Watch the shimmer, see the rhythm, wait for the pause. Carter breathed slowly, his eyes tracking patterns in the heat waves. Sophia could see the exact moment he recognized the window. His entire body relaxed, and then he fired in one smooth motion. 8 seconds later, clang. "Good shot," Sophia said simply. Carter stood up, grinning. "I saw it clearly that time. The whole pattern just opened up." "That's the breakthrough," Sophia confirmed. "You're not calculating anymore, you're reading." Senior Chief Holland was next. 3 weeks ago, he'd been the most skeptical, the most resistant to Sophia's methods. Now he was one of her best students. He settled behind the rifle, watched for perhaps 60 seconds, then fired. "Hit." "You're getting faster at recognizing the pattern," Sophia observed. "When you started, you needed 3 minutes to see it. Now you're down to 1 minute." "It's starting to feel natural," Holland admitted. "Like my brain is processing the information automatically." Master Chief Patterson approached Sophia. "I need to talk to you about something." They walked away from the firing line to a quiet spot in the shade. "I got a call from Naval Special Warfare Command," Patterson said. "Word has spread about what you've accomplished here. They want to expand the program." "Expand how?" "They want you to train instructor cadre, experienced snipers who can then teach this method to others. They're talking about making this a standard part of advanced sniper training across all SEAL teams." Sophia felt a flutter of anxiety. "Roy, I agreed to 3 weeks. I'm not sure I'm ready for a long-term commitment." "I understand. But Sophia, what you've done here in 3 weeks is extraordinary. These men couldn't make this shot at all before you arrived. Now they're hitting it consistently. That's not just impressive, it's revolutionary." Sophia looked out at the desert. Teaching 8 men is one thing, building a program is something else entirely. "I know, that's why you'd have support, instructors, resources, funding. You wouldn't be doing it alone." Patterson paused. "Your husband would have wanted this, you know he would have." Sophia's throat tightened. Mark had always encouraged her teaching, had always said she had a gift for helping others see what she saw. "Let me think about it," she said finally. That afternoon, Sophia ran a final evaluation. Each sniper would attempt 3 shots at 4,200 meters. To pass, they needed to hit at least 2. All 8 SEALs passed. 4 of them hit all 3 shots. As they celebrated, Sophia felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Chief Webb. "Ma'am, I wanted to say thank you. When you first showed up, I thought you were just another contractor trying to justify a paycheck. I was wrong. You've given us a capability we didn't have before. That matters. It saves lives." "You did the hard work," Sophia replied. "I just showed you what to look for." "Maybe, but without you, we'd still be missing that target and getting frustrated." Webb paused. "Are you going to stay? Keep teaching?" "I don't know yet." That evening, Sophia sat alone in her quarters at the base, staring at a photo on her phone. Mark in his Marine uniform, smiling at the camera, looking strong and confident. "What should I do?" she asked the photo as if he might answer. Her phone rang, unknown number. "This is Sophia Navarro." "Ms. Navarro, this is Admiral James Keller from Naval Special Warfare Command. Do you have a few minutes?" Sophia sat up straighter. "An admiral?" "Yes, sir." "I've received reports about your work with our sniper cadre at 29 Palms. Frankly, I'm impressed. Master Chief Patterson tells me you've accomplished in 3 weeks what we couldn't accomplish in 3 months of trying." "The SEALs did the work, Admiral. I just provided guidance." "Don't be modest, Ms. Navarro. What you've taught them is a game changer. I'm calling to ask if you'd consider a longer-term arrangement with the Navy." Sophia took a breath. "What did you have in mind?" "A formal position as a senior civilian instructor at our advanced sniper school. You'd develop curriculum, train instructor cadre, and oversee the integration of your methods into our standard training pipeline. It would be a 3-year contract initially, with option to extend." 3 years, that was a real commitment. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but I've been out of operational training for over a decade. I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. With respect, Ms. Navarro, the results speak for themselves, and I've read your background file. You were one of the premier long-range shooting instructors in the country before you left the field. You pioneered techniques that are still being used today. We need that expertise. Can I have time to think about it? Of course, but Ms. Navarro, I want you to know something. Your late husband, Gunnery Sergeant Mark Navarro, served with distinction. He saved lives through his skill as a sniper. What you're offering us is a chance to save even more lives by making our snipers more capable. That's a worthy legacy for both of you. After the call ended, Sophia sat in silence for a long time. She thought about the past 12 years, the research work, the safe distance from operational reality, the way she'd hidden from the pain of Mark's death by avoiding the community they'd both loved. She thought about the past 3 weeks, watching the SEALs struggle, then break through, then excel, seeing their confidence grow, knowing that what she'd taught them would make them more effective, safer, better able to protect themselves and others. And she thought about Mark, who'd always believed that the greatest honor in life was service to others. Sophia picked up her phone and called Admiral Keller back. Admiral, this is Sophia Navarro. I've made my decision, I accept. 2 months later, Sophia stood in front of a classroom at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. 20 SEAL snipers filled the room, all experienced operators being trained to become instructors in what was now officially called the Advanced Environmental Pattern Recognition Program. Good morning, Sophia began. For the next 6 weeks, you're going to learn to see the wind, not measure it, not calculate it, see it. And then you're going to learn how to teach others to see it too. She clicked to her first slide, a photo of Mark in his Marine uniform. This is Gunnery Sergeant Mark Navarro, USMC. He was a scout sniper instructor who taught hundreds of Marines the fundamentals of precision fire. He was also my husband. The room was completely silent. Mark died 12 years ago in Afghanistan. After his death, I left operational training and focused on research. I told myself it was because I needed distance from the pain, but really I was running from it. Sophia took a breath. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. Teaching isn't just about passing on skills. It's about honoring the people who taught you, the people who believed in you, and the people who gave their lives so that others could live. When you teach, you're creating a legacy that extends beyond yourself. She clicked to the next slide, data showing the improvement in hit rates at extreme distances since the program began. In the past 2 months, SEAL snipers trained in environmental pattern recognition have achieved hit rates at 4,000+ meters that are 3 times higher than conventional methods. 3 times. That's not a marginal improvement, that's a revolution. One of the students, a senior chief named Rodriguez, raised his hand. Ma'am, what made you finally come back to teaching? Sophia considered the question. Watching good people struggle with a problem I knew how to solve. I realized that keeping that knowledge to myself wasn't honoring my husband's memory, it was betraying it. Mark always said that knowledge is a gift meant to be shared. So here I am, sharing it. Over the next 6 weeks, Sophia taught them everything. Not just the technical skills of pattern recognition, but the pedagogy. How to teach it to others, how to identify students who would excel at it, how to troubleshoot common difficulties. She taught them about atmospheric dynamics and fluid flow patterns. She taught them meditation techniques to enhance perceptual awareness. She taught them how to see the invisible currents in the air by watching their effects on heat, dust, and light. But most importantly, she taught them patience. This isn't a skill you can rush, she told them repeatedly. Some students will see the patterns immediately, others will take weeks or months. Your job as instructors is to meet each student where they are and guide them forward at their own pace. Chief Rodriguez turned out to be a natural instructor. He had the patience and the communication skills to break down complex concepts into understandable pieces. Sophia worked with him extensively, refining his teaching approach. You're going to be one of my lead instructors, she told him during a one-on-one session. You have the gift for this. I learned from the best, Rodriguez replied. My wife says I come home talking about wind patterns in my sleep now. Sophia laughed. That's how you know you've really internalized it. At the end of the 6-week instructor course, Sophia held a final evaluation. Each student had to successfully teach a novice shooter to recognize basic atmospheric patterns and then make a successful shot at 3,000 meters. All 20 passed. Admiral Keller attended the graduation ceremony. "Ms. Navarro," he said during his remarks, "you've created something extraordinary here. In less than 4 months, you've developed a complete training program that is already changing how we think about long-range precision fire. On behalf of the United States Navy, thank you." The instructors applauded, and Sophia felt a warmth in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. After the ceremony, Rodriguez approached her. "Ma'am, there's something we want to show you." He led her outside to the parking lot, where all 20 instructor graduates were gathered. Behind them was a large stone monument that hadn't been there that morning. Sophia stepped closer to read the inscription. Advanced Environmental Pattern Recognition Training Center. Founded by Sophia Navarro. In memory of Gunnery Sergeant Mark Navarro, USMC. Knowledge is a gift meant to be shared. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You did this." "We all contributed," Rodriguez said. "We wanted you to know that what you're building here isn't just a program, it's a legacy, for you and for Gunny Navarro." Sophia traced her fingers over Mark's name on the stone. "He would have loved this." "We made sure it faces east," another instructor added. "So the morning sun hits it first thing. Gunny was a Marine, they always loved the sunrise." Sophia couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. That night, she called her sister in Arizona. "Teresa, I did it. I came back to teaching." "How does it feel?" her sister asked. "It feels like coming home. Like I've finally stopped running from the pain and started running towards something meaningful instead." "Mark would be so proud of you." "I think he would be. I think he'd say it's about time I stopped hiding." Sophia laughed through her tears. "Yeah, that sounds exactly like something he'd say." Over the next year, Sophia's program expanded. More SEAL snipers were trained, and the techniques spread to other special operations units. The Marine Corps requested cross-training. Army Rangers wanted to learn the methods. But Sophia's favorite part wasn't the expansion or the recognition. It was the stories that came back from the field. A SEAL sniper in Africa made a shot at 3,800 meters to eliminate a terrorist leader, preventing an attack on a village. A Marine in Iraq used pattern recognition to make a shot in urban terrain that extracted a wounded teammate from danger. An Army Ranger in Afghanistan reported that the techniques had helped him make 3 critical shots that protected his unit during a complex operation. Lives saved, missions accomplished, warriors coming home safely. That was the legacy, that was what mattered. 18 months after taking the position, Sophia received an unexpected letter. It was from the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Inside was a nomination for the Department of Defense Distinguished Civilian Service Medal and a personal note. "Ms. Navarro, your late husband served with my unit in Iraq. He was one of the finest Marines I ever had the privilege of leading. I believe he would be extraordinarily proud of what you've accomplished. You're saving lives and honoring his memory in the most meaningful way possible. Semper Fi." Sophia held the letter for a long time, thinking about Mark, about the journey that had brought her here, about the monument with his name on it facing the sunrise. She'd spent 12 years running from the pain of losing him. But in coming back to teaching, in sharing the knowledge they'd both valued so deeply, she'd found a way to keep him alive. Every sniper she trained carried a piece of Mark's legacy forward. Every life saved by a shot made using her techniques was a testament to both of them. The U.S. SEAL snipers couldn't hit the target until she hit 4,200 meters like it was easy. And then she taught them to do the same. But the real story wasn't about one impossible shot. It was about a woman who transformed grief into purpose, loss into legacy, and turned her gift for seeing the invisible into a way to protect those who protect others. Sophia Navarro had come home, and she was just getting started. 8 months after Sophia's program became operational across all SEAL teams, Master Chief Patterson appeared at her office door at the Coronado Training Center. "Sophia, we have a situation. Need to talk in the SCIF." A SCIF, Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, meant classified discussion. Sophia followed Patterson to the secure room and waited while he activated the privacy protocols. "We've got a mission developing in Somalia," Patterson began. "High-value target, senior al-Shabaab leadership. Intelligence says he's meeting with foreign fighters at a compound in Mogadishu." "What's the tactical problem?" "We can't get conventional assets close enough. The compound is in a densely populated area with enemy sympathizers throughout the neighborhood. Attempting a raid would cost civilian lives and alert the target before we could capture him." Patterson pulled up satellite imagery. "But there's a building here, 300 meters away, with sight lines to the compound. If we can position a sniper team there, they could take the shot and extract before anyone knows what happened." Sophia studied the imagery. 4,300 meters in an urban environment, wind patterns will be chaotic because of the buildings. "I know, that's why I'm here." Patterson met her eyes. "The team going in is led by Lieutenant Carter and Chief Rodriguez, both trained under you. They're confident they can make the shot using your methods, but you want me there for support." "Yes, you'd be positioned at the forward operating base, not on the ground in Mogadishu. You'd have access to real-time atmospheric data, drone feeds, everything. You could provide guidance if they need it." Sophia felt her stomach tighten. This was different from training. This was real, lives on the line, mission success or failure. "When team deploys in 48 hours, you'd leave with them." Sophia thought about Mark, who deployed dozens of times to dangerous places. He'd never hesitated when his country needed him. "I'll go." 2 days later, Sophia was on a C-130 transport flying to Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. The SEAL team was aboard, 8 men including Carter and Rodriguez, plus support personnel. Carter sat down next to Sophia during the flight. "Nervous." "Terrified," Sophia admitted. "I've never been this close to actual combat operations." "That makes 2 of us," Carter said with a slight smile. "This will be the longest shot I've attempted in combat, by about 1,000 meters. You made shots this distance, dozens of times in training." "Training is different. In training, if I miss, we just try again. Here," he didn't finish the sentence. "Here, if you miss, the target escapes and people die," Sophia finished for him. "I know, the weight of it is heavy." "How do you deal with that, the pressure?" Sophia thought about all the competitive shooting she'd done, all the training, all the moments when everything depended on one shot. You don't think about the consequences, you just see the shot. See the pattern, see the window, take the shot. The moment you start thinking about what happens if you miss, you've already lost your focus. Carter nodded slowly. "That's what Gunny Navarro used to tell his students. My platoon chief trained under him in 2010. He said Gunny had this phrase, 'See the shot, trust the shot, make the shot. Everything else is noise.'" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "That was Mark's philosophy. I can't believe people still remember." "People remember, ma'am. Gunny Navarro's legacy is still teaching Marines and SEALs, even now." At Camp Lemonnier, Sophia was set up in the Joint Operations Center with access to all available intelligence. The mission timeline was flexible. They'd wait for the right conditions and the confirmed presence of the target. For 3 days, they waited. Sophia spent the time studying the atmospheric patterns over Mogadishu, reviewing historical weather data, trying to anticipate what conditions would be like when the moment came. On the 4th day, intelligence confirmed the target was at the compound. The mission was a go. Carter and Rodriguez, along with a small security element, infiltrated into Mogadishu and made their way to the designated building. It took them 6 hours of careful movement through a city filled with potential threats. Finally, they were in position. Sophia's headset crackled. "Overwatch, this is Sniper 1, we're set." That was Carter's voice. Sophia's hands were shaking as she responded. "Sniper 1, this is Overwatch, copy. I have atmospheric data available when you're ready." "Stand by." Sophia watched the drone feed showing the target compound. She could see heat signatures indicating multiple people inside, but couldn't identify which one was the target. "Overwatch, Sniper 2, Rodriguez's voice came through. "I have positive ID on target. He's visible through a second-floor window. Range is 4,340 meters. Sophia pulled up the atmospheric data. Temperature, 38 degrees Celsius. Humidity, low. Wind, variable, gusting 15-22 knots. The conditions were terrible for a shot this extreme. Sniper 1, Overwatch, Sophia transmitted. Current wind conditions are highly variable. I'm showing gusts and turbulence from the urban heat island effect. Recommend waiting for conditions to stabilize. Overwatch, we may not have time, Carter replied. Target is moving around. If he leaves our sight picture, we could lose him. Sophia's heart raced. This was the moment. Trust the training or play it safe. She thought about Mark, about Carter and Rodriguez, and all the hours they'd spent learning to see patterns in chaos. Sniper 1, forget the instruments. What are you seeing? There was a pause, then Carter's voice came back calmer. I'm seeing the thermal shimmer between buildings. There's turbulence, but there's a pattern to it. Build, peak, drop, pause. Cycle time looks like about 25 seconds. Can you see the pause window clearly? Yes, it's brief, maybe 3 seconds, but it's there. Then trust what you see. Time your shot for the pause. Another pause. Sophia could imagine Carter behind his rifle, breathing slowly, watching, waiting. The entire operations center was silent. Everyone knew what was happening. On the drone feed, Sophia could see the heat signature that was the target, still visible in the window. Then Carter's voice, barely a whisper, I see it, taking the shot. Sophia held her breath. On the video feed, she saw the tiny flash from the sniper position 4,340 meters away. Now they waited. At that distance, the bullet would take over 9 seconds to arrive. Sophia counted in her head, 1, 2, 3. At 8 seconds, the heat signature in the window suddenly collapsed. Hit confirmed. Rodriguez's voice was steady but filled with relief. Target is down. The operations center erupted in quiet celebration, but Sophia just closed her eyes and breathed. Carter had made the shot. Using the techniques she'd taught him, reading patterns in chaotic urban conditions, he'd made a shot that most snipers would consider impossible. Overwatch Sniper 1, Carter transmitted. Thank you for the guidance. You made the shot, Lieutenant. I just reminded you to trust your eyes. The extraction went smoothly. 6 hours later, Carter and Rodriguez were back at Camp Lemonnier, safe and successful. Sophia met them as they arrived. Carter looked exhausted but satisfied. I saw it clearly, he told her. The pause in the turbulence, just like you described. When it came, I knew it was the right moment. There was no doubt. That's what mastery looks like, Sophia said. When you trust your perception so completely that action becomes automatic. Rodriguez pulled her aside. Ma'am, I need to tell you something. When Carter was preparing to take that shot, I was spotting for him, and I saw him mouth something right before he fired. What did he say? See the shot, trust the shot, make the shot. Gunny Navarro's phrase. Carter used your late husband's philosophy to make the most important shot of his career. Sophia felt tears forming. Mark would have loved that. He was there with us, Rodriguez said quietly. Every sniper you've trained carries a piece of Gunny Navarro forward. That's a hell of a legacy, ma'am. Back at Coronado 2 weeks later, Sophia was in her office when Admiral Keller visited. Ms. Navarro, I wanted to personally thank you for your support on the Somalia operation. The mission was a complete success, and Lieutenant Carter credits your training and guidance for making that shot possible. Carter did the work, Admiral. He's an exceptional sniper. He is, but he's exceptional because you made him better. That matters. Keller handed her a folder. I'm also here to give you this. Inside was a certificate for the Joint Civilian Service Commendation Award, recognizing her contribution to the successful mission. Sir, I was just doing my job. Your job saved lives and eliminated a serious threat to regional stability. That's worth recognizing. Keller paused. There's something else. We've received requests from our NATO allies, Britain, Canada, Australia, to train their snipers in your methods. Would you be willing to expand the program internationally? Sophia thought about the 18 months since she'd returned to teaching, about the lives saved, the techniques refined, the legacy growing. Yes, Admiral, I'm willing. Good, because what you've built here is too valuable to keep to ourselves. Our allies need this capability too. Over the next year, Sophia trained instructor cadre from 5 allied nations. British SAS, Canadian JTF-2, Australian SASR, German KSK, and Norwegian FSK all sent their best snipers to learn her methods. The program became known internationally as the Navarro method, named not after Sophia but after Mark. She'd insisted on that. The techniques drew from his teaching philosophy as much as her own innovations. One afternoon, a British SAS sergeant major approached her after training. "Ms. Navarro, I have something for you." He handed her a photograph. It showed Mark in Afghanistan, 2011, standing with a group of British soldiers. The SAS sergeant major pointed to himself in the photo. He'd been a corporal then. "Your husband spent 2 weeks training my unit in advanced sniper techniques before his last deployment. He was brilliant, patient, knowledgeable, demanding, but fair. He made us all better." The sergeant major met her eyes. "When I learned the Navarro method was named after him, I wanted you to know that he's still making us better all these years later, through you." Sophia held the photo with shaking hands. She'd never seen it before, Mark with this group of young British soldiers, all of them looking confident and ready. "Thank you for this," she whispered. "It means more than you know." That evening, Sophia sat in her office looking at the photo. She'd built a wall of memories now, pictures of graduating classes, letters from snipers in the field, mission success reports, and now this image of Mark doing what he loved. Her phone rang, unknown number. "This is Sophia Navarro." "Ms. Navarro, this is Colonel James Mitchell, USMC. I'm calling from Quantico. I was Mark's commanding officer during his time as a scout sniper instructor." Sophia's breath caught. "Colonel Mitchell, Mark spoke highly of you. He was one of my best instructors. I heard about the program you've built, about the international training, about the Somalia mission. Sophia, I wanted to tell you something. When Mark was killed, I felt like we'd lost not just a great Marine, but irreplaceable institutional knowledge. He had insights about long-range shooting that were unique." "He did. But you've done something extraordinary. You've taken Mark's philosophy, combined it with your own expertise, and created something that's teaching thousands of snipers across multiple nations. You didn't just preserve his legacy, you expanded it beyond anything he could have accomplished alone." Sophia felt tears streaming down her face. "That means everything to me, sir." "It should. Mark would be incredibly proud. And Sophia, thank you. Thank you for coming back to teaching. Thank you for sharing your gift. And thank you for making sure Mark's name will be remembered for generations." After the call ended, Sophia walked outside to the memorial stone that the first class of instructors had erected. She traced Mark's name with her fingers. "We did it, me Ammer," she whispered. "We're teaching the world to see the wind, to make impossible shots, to come home safe." The evening breeze blew across the training center, and Sophia smiled. Even now, she could read its patterns. Some skills, once learned, never left you. The U.S. SEAL snipers couldn't hit the target, until she hit 4,200 meters like it was easy. Then she taught them to do the same. And now, through her training, through Mark's enduring philosophy, through the legacy they'd built together, impossible shots were being made around the world. Lives were being saved. Warriors were coming home. That was what mattered. That was the real victory. 3 years after Sophia first hit that target at 4,200 meters, she stood on a stage at the National Defense University in Washington, D.C., preparing to deliver the keynote address at the International Special Operations Symposium. The auditorium held over 500 people, special operations personnel from 20 nations, defense researchers, senior military leadership, all gathered to discuss the future of precision warfare. Sophia had come a long way from that quiet observer sitting in the desert heat, watching SEALs struggle. 3 years ago, Sophia began, I made a shot that changed my life. It was 4,200 meters, just over 2.6 miles, in desert conditions that most experts considered impossible for consistent accuracy. I didn't make that shot because I was special. I made it because I'd learned to see what others overlooked. She clicked to a slide showing wind patterns visualized through heat shimmer. What you're looking at is what I call the invisible signature, the pattern of air movement that exists all around us, but that most people never consciously perceive. Learning to see this pattern, to read it like a language, is the foundation of extreme long-range shooting. For the next hour, Sophia walked the audience through the evolution of her program. She showed data on hit rates, mission success stories, and testimonials from operators in the field. But the most powerful moment came when she invited 3 special guests to the stage. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Carter, now a SEAL Team Commander. Senior Chief Marcus Rodriguez, now the Senior Enlisted Advisor for Sniper Training. And Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen, USMC, a former Scout Sniper student of Mark's who now commanded a Marine Special Operations company. These 3 individuals represent what this program is really about, Sophia said. Commander Carter used the techniques I taught him to make a combat shot at 4,340 meters that eliminated a high-value target and saved civilian lives. Senior Chief Rodriguez has trained over 200 snipers in the Navarro method, expanding its reach across the special operations community. And Colonel Chen learned from my late husband 12 years ago, then refined those techniques with what I taught her, creating a synthesis that she's now teaching to the next generation. Carter stepped to the microphone. What Ms. Navarro taught us goes beyond shooting. It's about perception, about training your mind to see patterns in complex systems. I use those skills in mission planning, in leadership, in every aspect of my job. She didn't just make us better snipers, she made us better operators. Rodriguez spoke next. I've been a SEAL for 18 years. I've trained with the best instructors in the world. But what I learned from Sophia changed how I understand the fundamentals of our craft. She showed us that sometimes the most advanced capability comes from the most ancient skill, observation. Colonel Chen was last. Gunnery Sergeant Mark Navarro taught me that shooting was as much art as science. Sophia has proven that by blending art, science, and disciplined observation, we can achieve what previous generations thought impossible. Every time one of my Marines makes a successful long-range shot, they're standing on the shoulders of both Navarros. After the presentation, Sophia was surrounded by people wanting to discuss her methods, share their own experiences, and thank her for her contribution. But the person she was most interested in talking to was an older man who waited patiently at the edge of the crowd. He wore a simple suit with no military insignia, but his bearing said warrior as clearly as any uniform. When the crowd finally dispersed, he approached. Ms. Navarro, I'm Colonel David Morrison, retired. I served with your husband in Iraq in 2007. Sophia's breath caught. Colonel Morrison, Mark mentioned you many times. He said you were the best commander he ever served under. Morrison's eyes glistened. Mark was one of the finest Marines I ever had the privilege of leading. When he was killed in 2011, I felt like I'd lost a son. I followed your career since then, Sophia. I wanted to wait until I could meet you in person to tell you something. Please. After Mark died, I wrote a letter to his family, to you, trying to explain what he meant to our unit, to the Corps, to the war effort. I wanted you to know that his life mattered, that his death meant something. But I never sent it. I didn't think words on paper could capture what he was. Morrison pulled an envelope from his jacket. This is that letter. I'm giving it to you now because I finally understand what I should have said back then. Mark's life mattered not just because of what he accomplished, but because of what he inspired in others, including you. Sophia took the letter with trembling hands. Thank you, Colonel. No, thank you. What you've built, this program, this legacy, it's the most fitting tribute to Mark's life that I can imagine. You took the grief of losing him and transformed it into something that's protecting warriors around the world. That's not just honoring his memory, that's continuing his mission. That evening in her hotel room, Sophia opened Colonel Morrison's letter. It was dated August 2011, just weeks after Mark's death. The letter described Mark's service in detail, the lives he'd saved through his shooting, the Marines he'd mentored, the respect he'd commanded. But the final paragraph was what made Sophia weep. Your husband once told me that the truest measure of a warrior wasn't the enemies they killed, but the friends they protected and the knowledge they passed on. By that measure, Gunnery Sergeant Mark Navarro was one of the greatest warriors I've known. His shooting saved dozens of lives directly, but his teaching will save thousands more over the generations. That legacy is immortal. Sophia held the letter to her chest and cried, not from grief anymore, but from gratitude. Mark's legacy was immortal, and she was the one carrying it forward. The next morning, Sophia had breakfast with Admiral Keller, who'd been in the audience for her presentation. Sophia, that was one of the most impressive briefings I've seen in 30 years of service. You've single-handedly changed how the special operations community thinks about long-range precision fire. Hardly single-handedly, Admiral. I've had tremendous support. True, but you were the catalyst. You were the one who made the impossible shot and then taught others to do the same. Keller set down his coffee cup. I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. Your current contract ends in 6 months. I'd like to offer you a permanent position, not just an instructor, but as the Director of Advanced Marksmanship Programs for all of Naval Special Warfare. You'd oversee not just the Navarro method, but all sniper training, all marksmanship development, all precision fire systems. Sophia was stunned. Admiral, that's a tremendous responsibility. It is, but you've earned it. More importantly, you're the right person for it. You understand both the technical and human elements. You can bridge the gap between research and operations, and you have the respect of every sniper in the community. Can I think about it? Of course, but Sophia, I want you to know something. What you've built over the past 3 years is extraordinary. Don't underestimate your impact. That afternoon, Sophia took a walk along the National Mall, thinking about the offer, about her life, about where she wanted to go from here. Her phone rang. It was her sister, Teresa. How's DC? Overwhelming. I just got offered a promotion that's way beyond anything I imagined. Are you going to take it? I don't know. It would mean even more responsibility, more pressure, less time for actual teaching. Teresa was quiet for a moment. What would Mark tell you to do? Sophia laughed softly. He'd probably say I'm overthinking it. He'd say to trust my instincts and remember why I came back to teaching in the first place. Which was to honor his memory by passing on knowledge, to make sure his death meant something. And would taking this position help you do that? Sophia thought about the scope of the director role, the ability to shape training across all of naval special warfare, to influence doctrine, to ensure that the Navarro method was preserved and evolved properly. Yes, it would. Then you have your answer. Sophia called Admiral Keller that evening. Admiral, I accept your offer on one condition. Name it. I want to keep teaching. I don't want to become purely administrative. 1 class per year I teach personally. That's non-negotiable. Keller chuckled. Done. I wouldn't want it any other way. 6 months later, Sophia officially became the Director of Advanced Marksmanship Programs. Her first act was to establish the Mark Navarro Memorial Scholarship, a program providing advanced training to promising snipers from allied nations who couldn't otherwise afford it. Her second act was to commission a comprehensive study of long-range precision fire across all conflicts where U.S. forces were engaged. She wanted data, wanted to understand where the gaps were, where improvements could be made. The results were striking. Since the implementation of the Navarro method, hit rates at ranges over 2,000 meters had increased by 340%. Mission success rates for precision strike operations had improved by 28%. And perhaps most significantly, friendly force casualties during long-range operations had decreased by 17%. That last statistic, the reduced casualties, was what mattered most to Sophia. Every percentage point represented lives saved, warriors coming home to their families. She thought about Mark every day, but the grief had transformed into something else now. Not happiness exactly, but purpose, satisfaction, the knowledge that his death had meaning because she'd made it meaningful. 1 year into her new role, Sophia returned to 29 Palms to teach her annual class. 20 advanced snipers from across the special operations community, all there to learn directly from the source. On the first day, Sophia stood at the same spot where she'd first demonstrated the 4,200-meter shot 4 years earlier. 4 years ago, I stood here and made a shot that most people thought was impossible, she began. I'm going to make that shot again now, not to show off, but to prove something important. She settled behind the rifle, watched the heat shimmer, found the rhythm, and fired. 9 seconds later, clang. The students applauded, but Sophia held up her hand. That's not the point. The point is that 4 years ago, that shot amazed people. Today, it should seem routine, because that's what you're all capable of doing by the end of this course. What seemed impossible becomes normal when you have the right tools and training. Over the next 3 weeks, Sophia taught them everything she knew. Some students picked it up quickly, others struggled, but all of them improved dramatically. On the final day, one student, a young SEAL named Lieutenant Jason Wright, asked a question that stopped Sophia in her tracks. "Ma'am, why do you think some people can see the patterns and others can't? Is it just natural ability, or is there something else?" Sophia thought carefully before answering. "I think it's about being willing to see differently. Most people go through life with filters. They see what they expect to see, what they've been trained to see. Seeing patterns requires removing those filters, being open to perception without preconception." "How do you learn that?" "By being humbled, by failing enough times that you're willing to try a completely different approach, by being desperate enough that you'll try anything, even something that sounds impossible." She paused, thinking about her own journey. "I learned to see patterns because my father taught me when I was young before I developed those filters. But I really mastered it after my husband died. Grief stripped away all my preconceptions about what was important, what was real, what mattered. It left me raw and open to seeing things I'd been missing before." The classroom was silent. "I'm not saying you need to experience trauma to develop this skill," Sophia continued. "But I am saying that it requires a kind of openness, a vulnerability, a willingness to admit that there are things you're not seeing. That's hard for most people, especially in the military where confidence is valued." Lieutenant Wright nodded slowly. "That makes sense, thank you, ma'am." After class, Wright approached Sophia privately. "Ma'am, I wanted to tell you something. My father was a Marine Scout sniper. He trained under Gunnery Sergeant Navarro in 2010. He died in Syria 3 years ago." Sophia felt her heart clench. "I'm so sorry." "He used to talk about Gunny Navarro all the time. Said he was the best instructor he ever had. When I heard about the Navarro method, I knew I had to learn it. It felt like connecting with my dad somehow." "What was your father's name?" "Staff Sergeant Michael Wright, USMC." Sophia pulled out her phone and opened a photo album. She scrolled through until she found what she was looking for, a picture Mark had sent her from Afghanistan in 2010. A group of Marines in full gear gathered around Mark as he demonstrated something with a rifle. "Is your father in this photo?" Wright looked and immediately pointed. "That's him, front row, second from left. Your father learned from my husband. Now you're learning from me. That's beautiful continuity." Wright's eyes were wet. "My mom would love to know that I'm carrying on what Dad learned from Gunny Navarro. Give me your mother's contact information. I'd like to send her this photo and let her know that her son is honoring his father's memory by mastering these techniques." 2 weeks later, Sophia received a letter from Mrs. Catherine Wright. "Ms. Navarro, thank you for the photograph and for teaching my son. Michael talked about Gunny Navarro constantly after that deployment. He said your husband changed how he understood shooting, changed how he understood service. Knowing that Jason is now learning from you makes me feel like Michael's legacy continues. Thank you for keeping these connections alive." Sophia added the letter to her growing collection of stories, the human connections that made her work meaningful. 5 years after that first impossible shot, Sophia stood in Arlington National Cemetery on a cold November morning. She was there for the dedication of a memorial to fallen Scout snipers and SEAL snipers. Mark's name was on that memorial. So was Staff Sergeant Michael Wright's. So were dozens of other warriors who'd given their lives in service. Admiral Keller gave remarks about sacrifice and legacy. A Marine general spoke about the debt owed to these fallen warriors, and then Sophia was asked to say a few words. She stood at the podium looking out at the gathered crowd. Families of the fallen, active-duty snipers, veterans, military leadership. "I didn't serve in uniform," Sophia began. "I'm not a warrior in the traditional sense, but I was married to one. Gunnery Sergeant Mark Navarro taught me that service takes many forms. Fighting is one form, but teaching, preserving knowledge, ensuring that lessons learned in blood aren't forgotten, that's service too." She looked at the memorial, at Mark's name etched in stone. Every name on this memorial represents not just a life lost, but knowledge gained. These warriors learned lessons through experience, through training, through the crucible of combat. When they died, that knowledge risked dying with them. Sophia's voice grew stronger. But it didn't die because they taught others, because they passed on what they learned, because they created a legacy that extends beyond their own lives. She pulled out a list, names of students she'd taught who'd successfully used the Navarro method in combat. In the past 5 years, Over 300 snipers have made successful extreme-range shots using techniques rooted in the teaching philosophy of the warriors on this memorial. Those 300 shots saved lives, accomplished missions, and brought warriors home safely to their families. Sophia's eyes swept the crowd. That's what legacy means. Not monuments or medals, but living warriors carrying forward the knowledge of those who fell. Every time a sniper makes an impossible shot using what I've taught them, they're honoring every name on this wall. They're proving that these deaths had meaning. She touched the memorial, her fingers finding Mark's name. So to every fallen warrior here, I make this promise. I will keep teaching. I will keep your knowledge alive. I will make sure that the lessons you learned, the wisdom you gained, continues to protect and serve long after you're gone. That is my service. That is my way of honoring your sacrifice. The crowd stood in silent respect as Sophia returned to her seat. After the ceremony, a young Marine approached her, fresh-faced, couldn't be more than 22. "Ma'am, I'm Private First Class David Navarro. I'm Gunny Navarro's nephew, his brother's son." Sophia's breath caught. "David, Mark talked about you. You were just a kid when he died." "I was 10. Uncle Mark was my hero. When he was killed, I promised myself I'd follow in his footsteps. I'm going to Scout Sniper School next year." Sophia hugged him tightly. "Your uncle would be so proud. When you get to Sniper School, learn everything they teach you, master the fundamentals, and then, if you want, come find me. I'll teach you the advanced techniques, the ones your uncle's philosophy helped create." "I will, ma'am. Thank you. And ma'am, thank you for keeping Uncle Mark's memory alive, for making sure people remember him." After David left, Sophia sat alone on a bench near the memorial, watching the sun set over Arlington. She thought about that day 4 years ago when she'd made an impossible shot and changed her life. She thought about the journey since then, the teaching, the program building, the lives saved, the legacy created. And she thought about Mark, about the man who taught her that knowledge was meant to be shared, that service was the highest calling, that love expressed through teaching was the most enduring kind. The U.S. SEAL snipers couldn't hit the target until she hit 4,200 meters like it was easy. But the real story was never about one shot. It was about a woman who transformed grief into purpose, who honored her fallen husband by teaching thousands of warriors to make impossible shots, who proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a rifle, but knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Sophia Navarro had come back to teaching to honor Mark's memory. But in doing so, she'd created a legacy that would outlive them both. Every sniper who learned her methods carried both their names forward. Every impossible shot made in combat was a testament to their combined wisdom. Every warrior who came home safely was proof that their love, their teaching, their dedication to service had meaning that transcended death. That was immortality. That was legacy. That was what service truly meant. And Sophia Navarro would keep teaching, keep honoring, keep serving for as long as she drew breath. Because that's what warriors did. Even the ones who never wore a uniform.